Hi, everyone. This is Faith Borkowski, and this is High Five Literacy. And I'm so excited to have Randi Simon Lupo joining me. And Randi is actually my cousin. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of her and her accomplishments. And what's funny is I've been doing these special episodes with friends and now family to show people that you don't really have to go too far to find people who have a story about any types of learning issues and anxiety that goes with that. And certainly, testing anxiety is something that a lot of people live with, a lot of children live with it, and their parents. And Randi, you and I are not just cousins, but really good friends. And we would hang out together all the time and sleep over each other's houses. And we're the same age. And yet I did not know any of this. I mean, I had no idea. We played together every week.
It's true. It's true. And the sleepovers were the best. And just a shout out to Faith's mother, Judy, but for making the best dinners and always giving us dessert. She always gave us ice cream for dessert. It was the best. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, Judy is special, right?
For sure. For sure.
But and your mother was too, absolutely. And
Thank you.
we were very lucky in that regard. So we had, all these good times, and yet I did not know about your learning difficulties, and I did not know how you were suffering with this inside because kids don't talk about these things.
I would have been mortified as a child to tell you. Kids don't talk about this. We're humiliated. We feel alone. We feel like we're the dummies. Like you have to realize it's not today. I'm a woman of a certain age, and when I was a child, we were just the dumb ones in the class, and that's how it was. We weren't the gifted one, we weren't the smart one, we weren't the tal. Everybody had their label, so I was the dumb one, and it was what it was, and I didn't want to be that way. And Faith, I tried so hard, like, to overcome. I thought I could do things on my own. When I graduated, you know, when I graduated high school, I wanted I had this calling to be a social worker. I wanted to be a social worker since I was 15 years old. So I graduate John Dewey High School, and I don't know if it was Barnes and Nobles. I don't remember the name of the big bookstore, but I used to love to go to bookstores, and I bought all of these books that I was going to self-teach myself before I went to Brooklyn College. I bought a Carl Jung, I bought Freud, I bought B.F. Skinner. I bought 5 different books, and I bring them home, and I'm so excited to read because I'm going to go into Brooklyn College ahead of the game because I'm going to be the best therapist you've ever met because I think I could help everyone. I come home and I start to read my books, and I'm really excited. I mean, I come home with my stack and go into my room, and I go start reading my books, and I read the first sentence over and over and over again. And can I read words? Yes, I could read words. I could, if you put a medical journal in front of me, I could read it. I will probably mispronounce every word that I've never heard of. I could read words. I don't have the comprehend. I'm like, what? So I just keep rereading and rereading. I would get like a paragraph and I'd be like, wait, I'm not sure I got what that meant. So I just keep rereading. And then all of a sudden, those 5 wonderful books that I was so excited about, they got pushed away in a pile, probably under the bed or in a closet, never to be looked at again because I couldn't do it. It was just so hard. And what started out as such joy and excitement
Mm.
turned into such like self-deprecation and disappointment that I don't understand. I can't do it. What's wrong with me? And I was surrounded by smart people. Guys, my cousin Faith is brilliant, and I'm so proud. This is like the mutual admiration. Faith is brilliant, and Faith was always a smart girl. And I was surrounded by smart people, and it was shocking that they let me friends them because, like I said, I was the dummy, but they were very kind.
You're being so hard on yourself because
But
again, I would never, never peg you for a dummy, ever. You have such a sharp sense of humor, always so bright. I didn't see that at all.
And I so appreciate that. When I was, I'll never forget, I was in junior high school, and I think, my friend Myrna, and Myrna was another smart cookie, still is. And Myrna was like such a bright girl. And I don't know that I'm allowed to say this on your podcast, but I so wanted to do well. And I used to ask Myrna for help to the point where I was cheating off of Myrna. I didn't know what to do. I did anything I could. And I did things like that because I couldn't do it on my own. It was too hard. And there was no help. There was no help, and I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve. So if this is too much for anyone, I understand. But Faith, then I got to, when I got to high school and I had to take the SATs, talking about test trauma. I even took an SAT class at I was going to say Brookdale College, but I was in Brooklyn at Kingsborough Community College in Manhattan Beach, and I took it with the analogies, and this is to that, is that is to that, and fertility, and fertility is to fecundity, as something is to something, and all these, and I loved it. However, it came time to take the SAT. And I'm doing the math. It was so hard. After I wrote my name, I put my head down on the desk, and I took my test at your high school, at Lincoln High School. And this young proctor came over to me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just really tired, and this is just too hard for me." He goes, "But don't you want to try? Don't you want to try?" At least he said, I said, "No, it's just too hard." And I literally just put my head on the desk and settled for my 600, and the 600 was combined. It was ridiculously low. And I was like, I can't do this. And I basically gave up. I gave up, and I was like, I'm just
Did you have any help in school, Randi? Again, I did not know anything. So I really, I'm asking you, this is the first time I'm asking you, but did you have any type of help in school along the way?
When I was young, when I started out at Achi as a yeshiva on Ocean Parkway. I have a February birthday. Don't ask me why they pushed me up a year. Me, of all people, they pushed me up. It was ridiculous. I started out, I was like a businesswoman with a briefcase. I went to school for 8 hours a day. And I would have Hebrew in the morning for 4 hours, have a little lunch, and then 4 hours of English in the afternoon. I'm telling you, to me, math was like learning a foreign language. They're making me, I could barely do English, and they're making me do Hebrew. And I was so lost. And then my parents put me in public school. And in all honesty, I think I should have been held back. I'm not sure why they didn't, because I was young at the time. I think they should have made.
Do you think that would have helped? Do you really think holding you back would really have helped?
In my delusional mind, I used to think so, but in reality, it probably wouldn't have, because I think the issues were the issues, and I think that unless you work with someone who's highly skilled and understands them, you're not going to, they would try to send me to reading, and they would give me candy and stuff, and I loved the candy and stuff, but like I used to feel funny that I was pulled out where the other kids were so smart. They weren't, and I was like, hey, cat. Hey,
Yeah,
hey.
you know what? It's very hard because as you get older, it becomes very apparent when you can't do it, and it really can affect your self-esteem. And you know you're working on things that are kind of basic, and it definitely affects you. So I want to hear a little bit about how your family handled this, because the first time that I knew that you had any difficulties was when I attended your one woman show. And
Oh,
that was when I first discovered that you had any of these issues. And by the way, we didn't talk about what you do now as a career, but you went from being this shy girl that I knew in school into a comedian. And I just, to me, that was such a disconnect because your personality when you were younger, you were so shy, more, quiet. And then you went into comedy, and then you wrote this one woman show, Sometimes I'm Okay, and invited me to see it. And I have to tell you, it was really, really hard for me to watch you because you really exposed so much about the pain that you were going through. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how your family handled some of your learning difficulties?
I'll tell you, I think, I had a successful father, and he wanted all his kids to do well. I think all parents do. I don't think anybody gives birth and says, oh, I hope my child is the dumbest one in the class. Oh, praise God. That's what I want. I want no, as parents, we all want the bright, successful, talented kid. Those kids make the parents look good, make the teachers look good. I didn't make my parents look too hot, and it was a problem. And I think first my father was in denial, but then when he would go for the parent teacher conferences with my mother, and they would say, Randy is a very nice girl, but she's not college material. Well, my father wasn't having that. That like, what do you mean my daughter's not college material? My father started tutoring me. However, my father was a very, very bright man. He was a self-made man, but his strong suit was not tutoring, and he would lose his shit on me. He would lose his patience. It was me and my sister named that. They were like my torture sessions. I mean, I was getting smacked around. I mean, I was getting yelled at. I mean, it was like I swear he's smacking me in my head, and my IQ points would drop. I swear, I think he gave me brain damage. I think I got even dumber. And it was just so ridiculous.
Which I'm going to stop you right there because your father was like the sweetest, kindest man. And by the way, to just tell people, your father was an assemblyman. He was a politician, an attorney, and he was an assemblyman, well respected in his community. And he obviously loved all his children. You were one of 4 kids. Loved all
he wanted me to do well. So, and who could, of course, my father felt that I had it in me, and all he wanted to do was see me do well, and I couldn't blame him. I mean, of course, I'm a mother. I wanted my kids to do well. This is what we want as parents. We all want our kids to do well and be successful and do better than we. This is what it is to be a parent. But then when you have a kid, that it's like they seem typical. Why is everything so hard for her? I don't understand why she's not getting it. I mean, she talks, she walks, she looks like other kids, except for her teeth were hanging out of her mouth. And I had this hair that grew up before it grew down. So that was a little off-putting, but but the hair straighteners are wonderful these days. But aside from the buck teeth and the big hair, I looked like like everyone else's kid. And it so it talked like you like so that I think that was a big disconnect from my father. Like, why
Yes.
can't she do the work like all my other kids, and and her friends, and how this and
Yes.
because everyone around was intelligent and good writers and good readers, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
I just wasn't getting it, and to the point where, when you don't get it time after time after time after time. I can't speak for other people, but for me, it was so hard. I was just like, I can't do it. And you kind of give up. You kind of give up because what are you supposed to do? And then I would say, no, maybe I can. And then I would try and buy books like I told you. And then every time I tried, every time I would let go of the defeatist attitude and really give it my all and try. It was always the same thing. I don't get it. I don't know what I'm reading. I
Yeah.
don't understand. Like I said, between the reading comprehension and math was like a foreign language to me. Those word problems. Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't ever give me a word problem, because I will literally start crying. I will probably run into my room and go into the fetal position. It's just too damn hard. I don't get it. I don't get it. I would rather talk about hair and makeup and I don't know, gossip.
Anything but. So how did your mother handle this?
My I don't know. My mother, like, she also wanted me to do well. She always said later in life, she said, I could have handled you not doing well. So, so what? She had 4 kids. So if one doesn't do well, but the other 3 is successful, you can deal with that. One 3 out of 4.
Luckily, she had 3 others, but
You could deal with it. So I have one schlep, but the other 3 are doing well. So, but Randy's a very nice girl. If she would just brush her hair a little bit and clean her room better. Um, so, but my mother kind of felt that I was lucky that my father wanted to help me, because my mother didn't have a father. So she was kind of like, deferred to my dad because he was going to help me. I don't know. I never knew how my mother did in school. It was never a topic of
very interesting.
it was
But
never a topic
yeah,
of
so
discussion.
she wasn't the one doing this work with you. Your father wanted to help you, but he just did not have the patience. Or
He didn't have the patience, and then my mother would I had one of my sisters, my sister Elizabeth, was my big sister, and my mother would say, you don't want Randy to fail, do you? You need to help Randy. You need to help Randy. Like, she didn't get. She was like, do her homework. She didn't. Nobody wants to see their kid fail, and it was a lot of pressure from my sister. It's like, my sister was a very bright girl, very good student, very studious, did her work. So she's doing all of her work, and she's reading a book a week, a chapter book a week. And then my mother's asking her to do my work too. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid.
you know what? That's a very good point. Sometimes the sibling is asked to help, and yet they can't. Or, they try their best. But clearly, if it was a learning disability, how would your sister know
She
how
was
to?
a child herself. She was a kid herself, and she also had a social life. Well, she should not go out and play cards with her little girlfriends or dolls or Barbies, whatever the hell they were playing, so she could sit and do my work or to sit and tutor me. Who, it's a lot to ask of a kid.
Right,
It really
right,
is.
right. So anyhow, moving on with, so now you had this childhood with some difficulties. I don't know if anyone diagnosed you with a learning disability. Did anyone diagnose
What?
you with an LD?
No, they just thought I wasn't very bright. I think they just thought I was like just a girl that wasn't very bright. And again, I'm a girl. I'm not a boy, and I wasn't throwing chairs out windows or punching my teacher in the face. Wait, this I know this.
Ah,
You know,
yeah,
I would sit there, like you said, I was very quiet. So
right.
it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So it's like if I'm just sitting there staring out the window, I'm not disrupting the class in any way. So they kind of,
Yeah,
what were they going to do? I'll tell you. But in sixth grade, this is something you talk about in the book. I don't think not specifically, but like that. If let's say hypothetically, it's a good district, they want to keep those good ratings and they'll do anything they can. And like you said, like the parents will go for outside tutoring. I had a sixth grade teacher, God rest her soul. She, when New York, we took the citywides. Do you remember the
oh,
citywide
of course, the
test?
citywide test. Yeah, that's
I don't
like,
know what.
the ELA state test, but we called it the citywides, right?
I
Citywide.
don't know if she knew my father was hard on me or if our school principal put pressure on her. She literally came around and started giving me the answers to the citywide. She was like, Randy, A, B. She goes, and she was pointing so that I would circle the right things because she
Mm.
saw I couldn't do it. And I guess they want to keep up their ratings. So even the teachers, they were like, she was just giving me the answers. And God knows I wasn't going to get the answers right on my own. So I was like, whatever. Did I ever tell you about the time? Oh my God. Oh my God. I almost got kicked out of Brooklyn College. I wanted to do well so bad. As a kid, you want to make your family proud. You don't want to be the screw up. I didn't want to be the screw up of the family. That wasn't my intent. But it was just so easy to do, though. It just was so natural for me. But I went, so if I am in Brooklyn College, and my grades just, it was hard for me to take tests. It was hard for me to read. So the professor said, if you do an extra credit paper and you get an A in it, I will bump up your grade. Well, I was the worst writer. I couldn't even write a thank you card, Faith. To write thank you for your very generous gift. I will put it to good use. I couldn't even do that. I had to have someone dictate it for me or write it, and then I would freeze. I would get so scared I couldn't even. It was like, please don't get me a gift because I'm not going to be able to thank you properly. I mean, how crazy is that? I was I
No,
was
it's heartbreaking. It's
I
just,
was even terrified to write a thank you card because and how do you spell this and what if I spelled this wrong and what is and where does the comma go and what do I say? I don't want to sound stupid. What if I say so in Brooklyn, so I went at the time before I moved, I went to New Jersey with the crazy jug handles, and I went to this place. It was a warehouse, and it had a shit ton of oh, sorry, I don't know if I was allowed to
no,
say that.
it's okay.
Of file cabinets, because the expletives are going to come out of every topic of paper, and you could purchase it because I knew if my writing was crap. I'm going to write my own paper. I'm not going to get the extra credit. I'm not going to make my father proud. He wanted me to do well. So I submit this paper that I bought, and finding that warehouse with the jug handles, being a girl from Brooklyn and driving to New Jersey, that was a big challenge. And I took my hard-earned money that I worked for and I purchased the paper. Please don't judge me, everyone, but you can. But I did the best I could. I knew I couldn't do it on my own, so I purchased this paper. I'm taking the final, and after I handed my final, I had already given the professor the paper. I said, So did I get the extra credit for the paper? He goes, Randy, I wanted to talk to you about that. He goes, that was not your writing. I'm a very honest. I mean, when I'm not cheating, I'm a very honest person. And I said, well, of course it's not my writing. My writing is crap. I had to buy it. Don't you understand? My father wants me to do well. I had to buy it. How could I write my own? But he goes, this wasn't your writing. There were words like a adroit juxtaposition and like all kinds of fancy words, which I
so
love.
he knew right away. He had your number that this was not your work.
And I was like, so he goes, Randy, I'm going to have to, he goes, this is plagiarism. You're going to get kicked out of Brooklyn College. Oh, no. And first I was like, my father's going to kill me. And then I was just so depleted. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you just should kick me out because I can't do it. I can't do it. So listen to this. The transcript comes. Not only did I not get kicked out, not only did he not fail me, which I ended up getting an A. He gave me an A because the class was deviant behavior. He probably figured, well, she accomplished the deviance, so he gave me an A.
So this was your psych teacher. Was it psychology class?
Yeah, so I guess he had a heart because he was a psychology teacher, and the class was deviant behavior. He said, she's an idiot and she can't do the work, but her deviance is wonderful. I mean, she purchased the paper. I was very honest about it. What I was caught. I'm telling you what I did. I'm telling you why. I wanted so much to do well. I couldn't be a psychologist like I wanted because I wasn't smart enough. So I became a stand-up comic.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So when you say you weren't smart enough, I don't think that anybody helped you to reach your potential because clearly you're smart. I mean, what you do and to come up with your material as quickly as you do and, to be able to get your thoughts down, you have to be bright, and you are bright. It's just school and test taking and holding on to this information and expressing it. You had some difficulty. So how did you get into comedy? Because I was shocked. I really,
I'll tell you,
is the last thing that I imagined.
You know what? Is it okay if I turn around in a circle? You knew my grandmother. The joke in my family was, if you ask my grandmother what time it is, she'll tell you how to make a clock. And apparently, I think I take after my grandmother. And I have to tell you, I'm going to tell you how I got into comedy. But first, I'm going to tell you, yes, I did go for testing. I was 29 years old. I didn't think I was going to make it. I was so scared. I was anxiety ridden. I took the train into the city to this woman who was highly recommended. The person who recommended her said she was renowned in her field. The insurance didn't cover it. I paid out of pocket. It was expensive. It was a 6-week lengthy testing. I went to her for 6 weeks. I would give her like crumpled bills that I saved up like out of my pocket. And she would test me. And after these 6 grueling hard weeks of being tested, I'm waiting with bated breath for my diagnosis. And you think like I thought it was going to say auditory processing because that would have made most sense or something like that. And she comes up with, you are academically inhibited with an emotional overlay. My jaw dropped and I go, what? Is that even a diagnosis? Did you borrow that from Masters and Johnson? What the fuck? What is that? What? What are you telling me? You're just telling me that I'm fucked up? Is there any hope? What are you saying? What are you saying? What is this? 6 weeks? Oh, thousands of dollars.
And that was the diagnosis. fabulous. And how is that helpful to you?
How was it helpful? I think I pulled my hair out of my head. I think I probably took a razor and wanted to slit my wrist, but I didn't because, I had two of my own kids at the time. I had to stick around, but it's like, what do you do? It's like I felt like it didn't matter what I did. I can never get ahead.
Yes.
Academically inhibited with an emotional overlay. Well, what are you talking about?
I don't know what that even means. No. So then,
Uh, so
how-
so so
yeah.
I was always seeking and searching. I went to you know from my show that I have more therapists than I have friends because I'm trying to improve myself. I'm always looking for the answers, and I'd go to these therapists and I would tell them my plight, and I'm so anxiety ridden, as you could see, and I try to calm down, but it's very hard. If I'm not anxious, then I'm depressed. So it's one or the other. So you try. So I would be telling them, and my anxiety would be through the roof, and they'd be like hysterical laughing. The more upset I got, the more they were laughing. I wasn't aware as a kid, as a child, children were always laughing at me and not with me. And I felt horrible because they were mocking me. They were making fun of me. I finally went to this doctor I would tell him all these upsetting things and he would just laugh and laugh. And then he would start talking about Gilbert Gottfried. And I was like, what? And then he said to me, Randy, you're really funny. You should do stand-up comedy. And I was like very influenced by that. And sometimes I think back and I was so malleable. I wish he would have said, Randy, you're so smart. You should become a doctor. I would have became a doctor. He told me I should do stand-up comedy. And I listened.
So it was the therapist who got you thinking about comedy.
And then I would talk to people. And like I said, I think it's my anxiety that makes me funny. The truth is I did so much work on myself. And believe it or not, I got so much more normal that the more normal I get, the less funny I am. It's kind of funny, isn't that? It's kind of interesting. So, but my anxiousness is almost laughable, and I don't mean it to be, but it's like what do you do? And then other people would say, a lot of people kept saying, you're really funny. You should do stand-up comedy. You should do stand-up comedy.
Well, you were very funny. You were always very funny. And, I'm sorry that you think that people were laughing at you instead of with you. But again, you might have had a different experience in school from what I know of. Right. I think that's a little bit different from my experience with you.
Right. No, and I appreciate that. So one time my mother had a medical procedure. She had a surgery at Beth Israel Hospital in New York City. And I was in the waiting room with my sister and my mother. My mother had a long time, her boyfriend, she had Paul, who she was with for so long. And the doctor came out and said, everything is good. She'll be in recovery for at least an hour. You should go get something to eat. So we went down, we got a slice of pizza. Do you remember in New York City used to have those things you open up the door and they have free publications? And one was the Learning Annex. So I just grabbed it.
I took Learning Annex classes too. Yeah, sure.
So we're eating the pizza, and then we're going to go back, see my mother in recovery. But as we're eating the pizza, I'm talking, and I'm leafing through the Learning Annex booklet, and it says beginning comedy class. So I was like, I'm doing it. So I signed up for this comedy class after I saw my mother, of course, in recovery and knew she was okay. But as soon as I got home, I signed up and it said, get a tape recorder and extra batteries and cassettes, whatever. What was this, like 90 years ago? It was so long ago. before things like that became obsolete. I run to Radio Shack. I get triplicates of everything because I'm going prepared. I was so excited for this comedy class. I was living in New Jersey. I had moved to New Jersey. I took the bus into the Port Authority. I went to the school where the Learning Annex was hosting. this 3-week beginning comedy class. I go to the room and with all my bag of supplies and my tapes and my batteries and my players, and I'm sitting and it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. I'm also famous for being late. I was late to my own wedding. So for me to be there so early was like, is everything okay? I'm not like used to be. And 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, why am I the only one here? So I go to the front desk and I go, excuse me, I'm here for the beginning stand-up comedy class. And nobody is there. Am I in the wrong room? They go, ma'am, it's next week. It starts. So excited. I ended up going a week early. And I took the class, and comedy is the kind of thing that once you start, you almost can't stop. Talk about an addiction. And if you don't do well, you got to get up there and do another show because you got to fix what you didn't do right. So you just keep. So listen how
you have to have thick skin to be a comedian.
And isn't that funny? Because I don't. I have thin skin, and this is it. To be a stand-up comedian, you need to have thick skin, and you need to be confident. And I'm neither one, which is such an anomaly. But hey, it is what it is. But and it's not what I hate that expression. It is what it is. How did that come out of my mouth? Yeah, and it's not what it's not. So we'll leave it at that. But that learning annex class, it was 2 weeks in the classroom, and I didn't have any material. They just said, introduce yourself. So I was like, hi, my name is Randy. I don't know my last name because I kept maiden name, but I took my head. So sometimes I'm Randi Simon, sometimes I'm Randi Lupo, sometimes I'm Randi Simon Lupo. So I was like, I'm not sure what my name really is. I'm either Randi Simon, Randi Lupo, Randi Simon Lupo. I don't know my name. I'm not very smart. My father said I'm an elephant. And all of a sudden, everybody started cracking up I was like, what? I didn't expect that. And then the third time, they just stick you on stage in a comedy club. And it was like, and did I do great? No. I was so nervous. But I got the bug and I just wanted to do it. And I took more classes and I did open mics and you just keep going.
Did you feel like you were having almost an out of body experience by just coming out and being somebody else on the stage, like leaving shy Randi behind and kind of going out there and just maybe having a different persona?
That's so interesting. I don't think I had the presence of mind to think like that. And when you get on stage, it's like the nerves take over, especially in the beginning. I mean, I'm still nervous doing it, but it's gotten better. But I don't know. You just kind of do it, and then if you get laughter, if you're lucky enough to get laughter, it's like the laughter feeds you, and it's like. And then I started to feel like, wait, I can do something. Maybe I am good at something.
Wait, stop. Okay, so that's huge. Like maybe I am good at something. So for all those years through school, you really did not feel like you were good at anything at this point. Am I right? Is that how you felt?
I wasn't. They had to make up awards for me at like 6th grade graduation. Everyone was getting, the athletic awards, the smartest award, the most creative. They were just like, go put that chair away and go put that projector away. And then they gave me an award to be on the audio visual squad because they didn't know what else to do. Audio visual. I didn't even know what the hell that meant. Audio visual. What the hell is that? Is that like my diagnosis?
So you kind of knew that like these fake awards and these types of things were just like giveaway things. You picked that up, that, at that age, you kind of
Well, for me, it was. For the other kids, they were real. Some of the, I was very aware that a lot of the children that I went to school with were very, very bright. And some of them had talent. Some could sing and dance. Some of them were so smart. Some of them had art talent. Some of them were very athletic.
I didn't possess any of that this was a bunch of BS. that
But
when you were
me,
getting something for
I
you.
was getting something total BS because they did, they had to give each child award, but when it came to me, they're like, "What the hell? What are we going to give her? She stares out the window all day, and she's a nice girl, but like she's looking out the window. What we can't give her an award for staring out the window. So go put the chair away. Go, okay. Here's your award for the audio visual squad, and my parents are there as I'm receiving this award." And
Oh my
I knew
goodness.
I didn't deserve it. I knew I
Right.
didn't deserve it.
So then how did you decide to write this one woman show, Sometimes I'm Okay? So how did you go from comedy into being a playwright? That's a big change, especially since you just said you couldn't even write a thank you note. How did you do that?
I'm gonna tell you. I do enjoy theater, and I always enjoyed seeing one woman shows because I don't know if I'm a yenta or no, but I wanted to be a psychologist. So the truth is, I am genuinely interested in people's lives, in people. I'm very interested. So you normally when you see one woman show, you get insight into a person, and I'm fascinated by that. And then for my comedy, a mentor had recommended to go to this acting coach named Elizabeth Browning. They said, because I wanted to work on my delivery on stage to make my comedy deliveries more natural. They said, Elizabeth Browning, she's an acting coach, but we think she could help you with your comedy. And I would go and tell my jokes, and she would give me tips and, what to visualize and this and that so that it could come out more natural. And it was a very different kind of acting class. It wasn't like, oh, memorize scene 2 of Romeo and Juliet with your scene part. It wasn't like that. Everybody came in and had their own work slot, and everybody was working on other things. Some people were actually auditioning for Broadway shows. Other people were writing shows. Other people were writing books, were writing novels, and wanted to see actors and actresses act out what they wrote to see if they were on the right path with the writing. It was so interesting. And some people were beginning, and they would ask her for a beginning exercise. A lot of and we were the audience for everyone's work slot. And first Elizabeth Browning, the instructor, would give her feedback, and then she would open it up for our feedback that we could share too. And a lot of these people were doing shows and one person shows, and like I said, so I was like, what the hell am I doing here? These people are so talented. I'm not talented like them, but what am I? I don't belong. The theme of my life. I don't belong. I'm not good enough. But yet I'm still here. Isn't that funny? Yet I'm still here.
So you took this
And
class with Elizabeth Browning, and then but at
and then
that point you didn't
I
have a
said,
plan to write
and I
a
would.
one woman show.
Well, let me tell you how I did it. People are like, some people get very disappointed, and at this stage of the game, I'm like, sorry if you're disappointed. I'm going to do it my way. I can't do it the traditional way. What happened was I stopped. I started doing my comedy bits in her class. Then I transitioned, and every week I would go to Elizabeth Browning's class, and I would tell a story, whatever was on my mind, a memory, whatever. And she's very insightful. And then she asks questions. And then you respond to her questions. And everything was recorded. Because I always come with my recorder. I learned that from my first comedy class at the Learning Act. So, but everything was recorded. So every story I told, Elizabeth's feedback, the class's feedback, my and then like even with that, she asks you questions, and sometimes and then you answer, and they're thought provoking, and that she makes you think. And I'm not a woman used to thinking, so this was like a new experience, but I was digging it. I was into it. It was kind of cool. And she was also very warm, loving, and nurturing. And I didn't get a lot of that in my life. So to have someone warm, loving, and nurturing, that it was like, I mean, I fell in love with this woman. How could you not? I think anyone who meets her automatically loves her. That's just who she is, and she has a talent. I mean, she's an actress in her own right. She's an
So
actress.
she's the one who suggested that all of
Un-
these little pieces should then become a show.
I had something in me that I would tell my comedy mentors, I want to do a one woman show. And I would tell them these like fantastic, and like I want a screen behind me with the Rockettes dancing, and then I'm going to dance with the Rockettes, and they were like, Randy, that's not comedy. What are you talking? Like they thought I was like the most ridiculous woman on the planet, and I was like, no, I'm going to do it. They're like, but it's not funny. I was like, I'm not. And here's the thing: you want to hear the interesting part? I was so, I was so stringent and strict. I was like anal, and I was like, I'm doing a one woman show, and it's not gonna be funny. I don't want. And I was like, I don't want it to be funny. I was like nuts. I was insane. Here's the thing: something inside me needed to do this, and it didn't come from ego like everything else in my life. Most things come from ego. This show did not come from ego. It was something I had to do. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't. Most things in life are a choice. This was not a choice.
So this was like a cathartic experience, right?
And I don't know what it was. And I just kept telling, and then I kept telling more stories. And I knew that these stories were recorded. And listen to this. They were all transcribed through Fiverr. This woman, I want to tell you her name because I want to give her the credit, and I'm blanking her name. She's from the Philippines. She transcribed all of my recordings. So I had over.
That's so fascinating. So
I had over because I would tell stories, and then they would transcribe through Fiverr of this amazing woman in the Philippines, and then I would print them out, and I had stacks, and then it was like, but what order do you think one way, and I had a lot of delays. I thought the show was going to come out much sooner, but there was hesitations, and what if it's not good? And when I did it initially, I was like, this has to be done. It doesn't matter if it's the worst show ever. It doesn't matter if everybody hates it. I need to do this. It needs to be done, even if it is not well received, even if everyone says this is the worst piece of garbage I've ever seen. I needed to do it. It was, and I can't even explain it. It was like,
but you know what? I get it, because it's very interesting. Listening to this was like my first book. And I can't believe the similarities, but it was like, that my book was made up of journal entries. I think you do. And so, like when I wrote, reading intervention behind school walls, when you interviewed me, right?
I love that.
My first book, that was all journal entries. And I
didn't realize, because I knew you were always a great writer, and I just figured you sat down to write that book, and that is fascinating, and I'm so happy to learn that now.
Yeah,
that would have been a great question to ask you when I interviewed you. Where was my head? Where was my head?
But honestly, that also was organic, right? It was from just journal entries, and then I felt the need to get this message out to the world.
And you did. Thank goodness you did, because your message is so needed. I mean, when I interviewed you, when I read your book, and I was like, oh my god, somebody finally gets it. Somebody gets it, and I was so impressed. It's like, you don't have one master's degree in reading specialist. You have two. The first one, you were like, this is still not helping the kids. And like, you were not leaving any stone unturned. And you just kept going back until you got what you needed to help the children. Talk about inspirational. Holy moly.
Thank you.
And
Thank
no,
you.
please, thank you. Thank you.
So listen, so I saw your show twice, right? I saw the show twice. And the theme that I picked up on was that the people closest to you disappointed you. Is
Oh,
that not true? I mean, when I got that there was this piece of it, that there were people close to you, the therapist, your dad, who didn't get you, and like people who were really close to you just in some way disappointed you and or hurt you in some way.
I guess I felt
And
more hurt, and I know nobody, and I'm it's funny. It's the first time I'm saying I'm smart enough to realize nobody did anything maliciously. Nobody did. It's not. It's a. I think people just don't know. People just
no, so that's
you
the
know. And what is the
message,
teacher supposed to do when they have this student and they don't know how to help them? They're trying the best how they were trained. But if it
right?
doesn't work, what are their resources? What are they supposed to do? I guess you just focus on the kids that can do it and just give the answers to the kid that's just not getting it. I don't know what the answer is, and especially in those days. And then
Right.
I worked in the school system, and I saw the same thing. It's like, and how I ended up at one point working in the school system myself. It was the woman who hated school, but I saw kids just like me, and I didn't have the tools to help them either. And I saw that once they got to a certain grade, like the fourth and the fifth grade, they knew they were different than other kids. They were embarrassed. And it's
Mhm.
exactly like you said, they either withdrew and became wallflowers or they became the behavior problems.
Right, right. So, what advice would you give to people listening to this? So, I want to kind of leave people with maybe just some insight. You as an adult, looking back on this, what would you tell parents or teachers now that you could look back at this? What would be helpful?
I would say to them, throw your egos out the window. It's not about you and it's not about your ego. It's about helping these kids because you're going to have a problem on your hands. I mean, do you want a society of imbeciles like myself? I don't think you want that. Um, I don't think that. I think that I know that obviously I always defer to you, but like when I had learned more, and I'm sure there's things that surpassed it, but what was that? Or I know a lot of the teachers went back and were trained in
Orton
healing
Gillingham?
and things like that to help dyslexic children and struggling readers, and they're figuring out ways to help children. But I think it's very important that when you see that kid that's just not getting it, don't just assume that they're the big dummy. I mean, they might be. I don't know. Not everyone. We're not all brilliant, but even if the kid is not the sharpest tool in the shed, who cares? Help them. Help them. Maybe they just need a little extra help. Maybe
But
who
I
knows
think
what
what you
they have
just
inside.
said is we have to keep striving as teachers. So I'm talking about educators now, need, to instead of blaming the kid or blaming the family or thinking the kid is just, not good enough, we have to really look at ourselves to try to help those kids. What about the parents? What would you tell parents? Because it's really not up to them
I
to
would tell them,
know.
please hire a tutor. Don't do it on your own, especially because your own kid triggers you and you feel like less than because you feel bad that your kid's struggling. And then I don't want another kid to be smacked around and yelled at because the parent is like, I don't know what to do with this kid. They're not getting it.
Well,
So
there
it's
are
like,
some parents who really can, I think it depends on the parent. There are some parents who want to know and want to help and want to know the right way to help.
and some of them can. I think, what I'm so impressed. I know this is like going off the I'm so fascinated by now by the parents that are probably since well, it was before COVID, but you're hearing so much more since COVID. That's a lot of families now are opting to homeschool children.
Mhm.
And in a way, I really respect it. And sometimes they just want to, but I'm like looking at stories where they're like, my child was struggling in school, but then I noticed that when I showed them things from another approach and in different ways, they were actually getting it. We had to focus on how that particular child learned, and when we did it from their perspective instead of the board of ed's perspective or private school, whatever, we were able, all of a sudden we were like, this is a very bright
Yeah,
child.
I know people who opted to homeschool those kids who had difficulty learning, and yeah, I talk to them all the time. And honestly, it's a great choice if you can do it. If it works, great. But some people just aren't really cut out to do that. You know, it's really a very personal decision.
And I wouldn't leave any stones unturned. I would ask, and if you're not getting the answers that you need, I would just, I know it's so delicate in the school system. It's like everyone has such fragile egos, and everyone is so like, they're like a ton of time. It's not everyone. I'm kind of stereotyping, but I don't know. It's like they I kind of feel bad that I'm stereotyping, but
Well, no,
sometimes,
that's your perspective. You know,
but
you're
also I've
talking from
also
your own,
but
you
I've
know,
also seen, and then a lot of the teachers feel that if the kid didn't get it by a certain age, they're just never going to get it. And it's kind of like, and they feel like we did
like
the best.
it's a lost
It's
cause.
a lost cause. So I love what you say, how like really don't be ashamed, and if you see something early on, the earlier you get intervention, yeah, the more success that child is going to have. Once you wait till they're in the older grades, sometimes they're so depleted and humiliated and feel so terrible about themselves that there's so much damage already done. So if you spot something, don't be like, not my child, not my child.
Yeah, don't let your ego get in the way.
Don't let your ego get in the way. And not that you want to just like, you want the kid, the kid is still a kid. You don't let them get away with murder because they have a learning disability. They still need their discipline, and
Right.
they still need to eat their broccoli and all that. You don't overdo it the other way. You got to, but you help them with every kid is different. I don't know if one kid's the superstar, and so you go to all their games. You think one
Right.
kid's learning disabled? Well, then let's who best can help them? Is it mom or
Right.
dad? Is it an outside tutor?
Right. Well, you
Can,
know what? You
can
said
anyone in the
something.
school help them? Is anyone
Yeah, you said
is
something
anyone trained
important.
in the school
I
system? I,
think
I don't know.
I think that, parents need to know that it's okay that some kids need more of something than your other kids, or something different. That they're
Right.
not, just because they're born from the same parents doesn't mean they're going to be clones. They each are going to, you know, have their own needs, and we have to really respect that and try to
Definitely.
deal with it head on.
So true. And I've also learned, even from being a parent myself, it's like, you grow up and like you want everything. If you have more than one child, you want everything to be even Steven, even Steven. There shouldn't be jealousy. What's the difference? Sibling rivalry will never go away. And you can't do even Steven. Kids come into the world differently, and you got to give each kid what they need. Screw the even Steven.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Randy, so much for
Thank
coming on.
you.
This
Thank
was
you.
great. So I want to just tell everyone, Randi Simon Lupo still is doing her one-woman show. She is going to be in Woodstock on November 18th. Randy, are there any other venues where you're going to be performing?
Okay, well, I'm going to be doing some of my upcoming shows are private shows, but on November 24th, the day after Thanksgiving, I'm going to be at the Turning Point in Piermont, New York. So come, and I'm going to be in Summers Point on December 16th at Studio Space. So I have a bunch of shows coming up. My one woman show, which I got to give a shout out to my director, Karen Cook, because Karen Cook and Elizabeth Browning are my angels. And without those women, the show would have never been. And a huge shout out to my cousin Faith for being as awesome as you are. Keep doing what you're doing, Faith. I love you.
I love you too. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of you watching. And that's it. This wraps up 3 shows about test anxiety. If you missed the other 2, I will put the links for those this week. But one was with my friend Shanna and her children, Sam and Mallory. And it's about a parent dealing with this testing trauma. And the other was with my high school friends, Marsha, Endy, and Janie Cavallino Sorensen, and that was a really great episode too. So, you know, like I said, you don't have to go too far to find people who have stories. And this has been just great. And thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
All right, bye.
Bye.